The longer time passes, the clearer it is that communication strategy is key in politics. The president won't disagree. It's our project. That's good. Write that down. We'll decide on the details later. And on that point, there's a big difference between the ERN and the LFI that caught my attention recently. Communication strategy, the ideas, the program. Well, I redefined the basics, they had to adapt, those losers. LFI floods social media, they throw out as much stuff as possible. Too bad if there's a bunch of nonsense in there. And in the assembly, it's the same, they work, there are lots of amendments. Not always well thought out, but they work. LFI is more like the more we make ourselves heard, the more we're listened to. Bad buzz is still buzz, but ERN is the opposite. If we stay discreet, we're less likely to say something stupid. With ERN, the less we say, the less likely we are to get caught before 2027. Except for 4 or 5 who know how to behave, everyone else must be completely silent. Not a word. Lips sealed. We can't let this backfire. When we have candidates posting photos wearing Nazi officer caps, we think maybe it's not such a bad thing if they don't take too many initiatives. Or even none at all. Even Jordan Bardella, zero risk-taking. There are only speeches meticulously written in advance. It seems like the less he strays from the beaten path, the better he does in the polls. Jordan Bardella. Who rarely says anything stupid. So that's why when I choose videos that I use in Paradoxa when it's about politics, there's a higher chance of coming across an Antoine LÉAUMENT or an Cecilia Soudet from LFI who spouts nonsense every minute than a member of the Rassemblement National. Well, in the end, who produces nothing? When discussing politics, it almost always comes back to Macron and his group. That's expected, they're in charge, and power tends to take more, especially when it's this bad. But I'd still like to make a little video about the national rally from time to time. But I feel like my social media is flooded with Macron supporters and leftists. That's why I already asked you this question, and I'll ask again. If you ever find an interesting video about the far right, so I can make a video about it, Paradoxa among others, well, I'm interested. Because right now, apart from embezzlement, a trial, and a few worn-out cliches, there's nothing that really makes you think. If I made a video today, no, it would probably go like this. I'm returning to the high school rules. Last Wednesday, at the National Assembly, there was a debate on the bill aiming to ban social networks for those under 15 and everything related to it. On the stand, Antoine LÉAUMENT. Keep in mind that high school and school in general is a place where normally if the national education system is doing its job well, it sparks curiosity, it creates a desire to learn. That is indeed the main goal. There are some shortcomings, and recent school system updates move us further from the ideal. But that's not the topic of this video. For example, if I tell you that we are NYC ephemeral beings, I say that's wrong. Well, at least it's a mistake in French. That really makes you want to go look up what a Nike ephemeral being is, doesn't it? I knew about it and made a video on it years ago. It's a counter-tribe term. I'll share the link later. Still, I wanted to check if he was actually saying something dumb. Well, yes, because Nike-themere is a masculine noun. It's the Nike-themere. The adjective is Nike-themeral, so we should say a Nike-themeral being. We don't usually say it that way. Instead, we refer to the Nike-themeral rhythm of the being. Nike-themere means our biological cycles align with light cycles. No. The Nike-themere is the physiological unit of time lasting 24 hours, including a day and a night. And indeed, many species see their biological cycles adapt to the variations of light and temperature in the Nike-themeral cycle. Even the deputies who have chemsex weekends, for them we can talk about Nike-themere disorders. Their circadian rhythm is not adapted to the Nike-themeral rhythm. That's why in this chamber you have lighting that creates a permanent light so that it always feels like it's daytime. Maybe it's also that permanent lighting is better suited for working. No, Nike-themeral means that our biological cycles... Oh, it's even more boring to watch. Maybe some music would help. Wait, we're making a monster. Let's just cut the power and leave them in the dark. Can't an environmentalist suggest that? See, I told you and explained it. But if I had told you without explaining, you would have wanted to look it up on the internet because the word sounds pleasant to the ear. Well, he thought that by mixing everything together, maybe we'd get a bit of coherence.
I just used whatever was in the fridge. I only cook with leftovers. But well, right now it's a bit rough.
Yes, sparking curiosity is essential. But in his example, we're at school, and I think we can use something other than a phone and the internet. For example, with this. Mao's little red book. No, a dictionary. Or an encyclopedia. Or better yet, ask the teacher who used that word. Talk to an adult, you're out of touch. It's probably not even needed. A good teacher, when he throws out a new word or a complicated word, he explains it right away and puts it in context. So, in the end, you understand it. You understand it much better than if you're in night class with Antoine LÉAUMENT. Come on, you have to keep up with the times. Today, it's all about smartphones and the internet. Except the internet really represents humanity. There's as much good stuff as there is nonsense. Looking up a definition, you might find someone who didn't understand at all, especially nowadays.
There you go.
Artificial intelligence, otherwise, you ask ChatGPT, it's the same thing. Look, what are ephemeral beings? It gives me almost the same answer as LÉAUMENT, with some errors, like treating the ephemeral and circadian rhythms as synonyms, which they're not. Most importantly, it doesn't notice the mistake. Too clever, just like our deputy. But since I'm playful and less dumb than Antoine, I tell it just to educate it. It's strange, but since nictemer is a noun, I would have said nictemeral beings instead. And then suddenly, it agrees with me. We should say nictemeral beings, not nictemer beings. It's a masculine noun. The adjective is nictemeral, so it's a misuse of language. Artificial intelligence adapts and its goal is to respond. If you ever speak any way you want and say anything, it might not even try to correct you unless you ask it to. If you throw closed questions at it, it'll go along with you, even if you're way off. Here, look, I ask it if the center of the flat earth is the North Pole, right? And basically, it answers yes. Yeah, you think you know it all, but that's not true. You can tell that LÉAUMENT, no, he didn't know. He's way too happy to have found that randomly on the internet and to have gotten it wrong. Whereas for me, personally, I think it's normal that most of the deputies would know. Sébastien Delogus knew nictemer, that counts. Expecting a math teacher to be good at calculations and a doctor to know the human body inside out, I don't think that's too elitist. Well, I'd like a deputy to be at least somewhat intelligent and educated given how important their job is. Otherwise, what does he do? I have a friend at the bar who said he'd vote for Sebastian Deslogus if he could. You know, because he's like us and not a brainiac. And I told him, wait a minute, do you really think it's smart to give the responsibility of writing or voting on laws to guys like us? Well, he told me right away, oh no, wait, I wouldn't understand anything, I'm too dumb, come on, stop, I'd do anything. Well, it's the same for 1 out of every 2 deputies today. Just to be clear, even though it's obvious, this goes beyond political parties. Even though LFI breeds them. Look, for example, at the presidential hopeful Jordan Bardella. It's true that if he comes over to my place, he's more likely to win at payday than at Trivial Pursuit. Even against kids. No wonder that in the current mediocrity, there are still some who manage to say, yeah, Emmanuel Macron, he's not so bad after all, with his sunglasses. Useless, detestable, dishonest, pretentious, and out of touch with reality. Still, he's 20 intelligence quotient points ahead of the other clowns. Which only makes it 125, That's just for the record. Yeah, even I could beat him at Burger Quiz and Fortnite. I agree. We want politicians who are connected to reality, but that doesn't mean we can't have brilliant ones, and honest ones too. And there have to be at least a few French people playing on all 3 fronts. Because really, how do you expect the country to move toward a bright future with guys who have no background? Oh, no way! They said not to bring baggage, so why would I have brought any? So I think that in an inclusive society, we could have a bus driver who's a cocaine addict, a gynecologist who's just a torso, and a mentally deficient president. Science fiction, anticipation, idiocracy, right? So, what I'm telling you is that doing things the way you do, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make the debate a bit more pleasant at 11:43 post-meridium. No, but you talk. He's happy just because he basically said fuck your mother at the National Assembly. He's such a kid and even ruined his own point. But making bans like you do, you have 5 seconds left now. Not considering the impact isn't making good laws? Thank you, he's right to say that. Regardless of our stance on this law, we can agree on at least 3 points. First, it's 10 years outdated. Control solutions will fail before starting, and besides moving closer to a Chinese-style social credit system, we're making no progress. It's going to lead to tons of VPN use and fake identities among the kids, you know? But for Grandpa and Grandma, it's going to be even more complicated. But he illustrates so well what he just said with his off-the-cuff comment that, paradoxically, he might actually be giving us the start of a solution. A solution to what? To screw your mothers? Whether it's the internet, smartphones, or artificial intelligence, these are just tools. And like all tools, you have to learn how to use them. Oh yeah, not like him though. Teach it to children at school, but also to parents. Make them aware for the well-being of their children and our society. I even made a logo. You too, come and discover in evening classes thanks to the internet how to unmask the humans. So, spoiler, this is already being implemented locally by some city halls and some schools from all political backgrounds who are reaching out to parents so they can get more involved in their children's lives and in the school, also aiming to raise awareness of screen-related harm. In which we can see, among others, the artificially intelligent Antoine LÉAUMENT. Paradoxical. Why do we take drugs? Me, I say let's go for it, you know? Well, that was never good at math. Oh, Gabriel Apolital, he's here. I'm Outrell. Son of Outrell. If you want another paradox, hit the keyboard. In the interest of the institution. Totally agreed. Times are tough on YouTube, so thanks to those who tease the algorithm. And also to those who support me on Typee. See you very soon? Yes! Luckily, I got out of it.